joining us today on another episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I'm so glad you've decided to tune in for this incredible little half hour where we are going to talk all things motorsports, because we got a big show in store for you this week. We've got coming up this weekend the Brickyard 400, IndyCar is in Laguna Seca, and Formula One returns to action for the Belgian Grand Prix up at Spa-Francorchamps. So that's a lot of races to look forward to, a lot of big races. If you're a big motorsports fan like I am, those are three races that typically you should have circled on your calendar. And we got to get you ready for all of those by breaking down all of the news that happened over the past week in the world of motorsports. Let's go ahead and get right on into that. But before we do, be sure to follow me on social media. If you like this show, you can do so by looking up at rpeeters33. That is RPEETERS 33. And then be sure to have the WTHR Plus app installed on your smart device so that you can get brand new episodes of the Racing Report as soon as they are posted. So let's go ahead and jump right on into the Formula One news of the week. Starting off, this is a lot of news regarding the Cadillac F1 team. First of all, Pato O'Ward has denied rumors linking him to one of the Cadillac F1 seats next year, saying, quote, "The rumors about me going to Cadillac were like the rumors about Fernando Alonso hanging out with Taylor Swift, a.k.a. bogus." So there's some news there. Pato O'Ward at least will not be one of the drivers that will be in the Cadillac F1 car next year. But one driver that might be there is Mick Schumacher, because he says that he has had positive talks with Cadillac F1 for a possible race seat there next season, and says that, quote, "discussions are ongoing." So maybe Mick Schumacher could be in there. Obviously, Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez are the favorites, but looks like Mick might be in that consideration as well. So we'll have to see who Cadillac F1 ends up picking for their two drivers here in the coming weeks, months. Who knows when that announcement's going to be made? We'll just have to find out. But when it does get made, make sure you keep it here, because we will have that right here on the Racing Report. So. And then finally, here in the world of Formula One news today, former world champion Sebastian Vettel says that his time in F1 is, quote, behind him, but he has reportedly not ruled out a return to racing in the World Endurance Championship. So Vettel says that, the 8 races of the World Endurance Championship is a little bit easier to deal with. Obviously, he likes spending time with his kids, and obviously he's taken a lot of activism roles lately. So, for Seb to really think about coming out of racing, it looks like it would be more likely than not with the WEC if he does decide to do that. But obviously, as of right now, I don't believe that there are any formal plans for Seb to come back. But definitely worth keeping an eye on. Maybe we could see Sebastian Vettel running around Le Mans sometime in the near future. Who knows? We'll just have to monitor that and see where it goes. Now let's move on into some of the IndyCar news from the week. There's a lot to get to, a lot to break down, a lot to, kind of just let set in at what's going on. So here's what's going on. Nathan Brown of the Indy Star has reported in a fairly big bombshell article that IndyCar is reportedly considering replacing Iowa with Mexico City. Now, this would allow the series, to travel from Laguna Seca to Mexico City without really incurring a whole ton of logistical or financial problems. But this would also require another replacement race. Because here's the thing. Basically, what's going on right now is it looks like Iowa's not coming back. It is what it is. I'm frustrated about it, too. I talked about this on my podcast, Racing with Rob and Roller. Again, available wherever you get your podcast. Go ahead and check that out if you're interested to really hear some of my thoughts on that, at least more in depth than what I'm about to go through here. But really what's interesting about all of this is IndyCar is really just not even planning to come back to Iowa at all, at least according to this report. It looks like instead of just going down to one race and trying to promote the heck out of that, they'd just rather not come back at all. Now, understandably, it is a track rental. NASCAR owns Iowa. So it looks like IndyCar racing in Iowa Speedway for the foreseeable future might be done, which is very unfortunate. But as a result of that, looks like we might have a date for Mexico City that will make a little bit more logistical sense, financial sense as well. Apparently, there was also a rumor that perhaps a joint NASCAR-IndyCar weekend could have happened, but NASCAR doesn't seem very interested in that, and that was scrapped. It was shelved. It was not happening in any way, shape, or form. But what's really also interesting here is that this is also be done to avoid a clash with the FIFA Men's World Cup, which is reportedly, which is scheduled to take place July 19th of 2026. So basically, if they moved it to right around this weekend now, like the July 23rd to 27th style weekend, if they did that, it would prevent that clash and likely help attendance figures for the race. I don't know. Again, Pato Award probably will help a lot, but hey, man, who knows with IndyCar and how they promote things. But what's really also interesting, too, to keep in mind is that there were a lot of rumors from this past week about the future of the series in Toronto. Now, it looks like, again, because of that FIFA Men's World Cup coming to North America, it's going to be held in Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So 3 North American countries. And as a result of that, this could place some substantial challenges for IndyCar, not just because Fox has the broadcast rights to the FIFA World Cup, but then also because of all of these sites maybe being changed up and improved for that race. And one of those sites is the exhibition place that we just ran a race at Toronto this previous weekend. Now, in these rumors, it seems as though the likelihood that Toronto will return for next year is quite slim, which would then mean IndyCar would need an additional replacement race to replace that race at Toronto. This is not good. But at the same time, I have a little bit of hope that maybe IndyCar can start negotiating with another oval track and seeking out another oval venue. But I'm also not super confident about that because according to Nathan Brown's article, which, by the way, did not mention Toronto at all, he says that it's more likely that IndyCar could just shift a doubleheader weekend to an existing oval, which would mean, I believe, Milwaukee, Nashville, or I guess Gateway. I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, you're not going to do it at Indianapolis. You're not going to have one at Indianapolis, but that's the 4 ovals. You want to have it. He wants to have a 5th oval, obviously. But the question now will become, if you're going to replace Iowa with Mexico City, what other oval do you go to? What other tracks are feasible? And I have a suggestion. Again, I talk about it in my podcast at the end. It's part of my final word. If you want to hear what I think IndyCar should do, go ahead and give that a listen. Again, Rob and Roller on all your major podcast platforms. Go ahead and give that a listen. But right now, that is what is going on in the world of IndyCar. It's very weird with the schedule. And when we get to the NASCAR schedule, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it looks like scheduling things for next year is getting a little bit tricky for most majors motorsports, except for Formula One, who's already released its 2026 calendar. But anyway. Meanwhile, moving along into the next piece of IndyCar news, and this is interesting, Racer has reported that Don Cusick says that he is exploring expansion options with Dreyer and Reinbold Racing, as well as a possible co-entry agreement with an India NXT team that Cusick said he should know more about by next week. Interesting. And this is next week. So this is a story that was posted July 23rd. Cusick says sometime by next week he should have an idea of what kind of Indy Next team that he's going to be able to field, and perhaps that will be a 2-car team. At least that's what Racer is reporting. And he also mentioned stuff about the upcoming IndyCar 2028 chassis that is coming out. He seems very happy about that. Maybe perhaps you could see a partnership with him and Dreyer and Reinbold, maybe returning to a full or part-time schedule rather than just an Indianapolis 500 schedule in the near future. Definitely some positive news there, especially when IndyCar is looking at 27-car grids. If they could bump that up to 29, that would be insane. And it would really make for some fun times down at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway when bump day rolls around. So that's the IndyCar news of the week. We got to take a break real quick, but when we come back, we are going to talk about NASCAR news. We're going to break down all the news in the world of NASCAR. So do not go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Let's get you caught up on all the world news from the world of NASCAR. This is the biggest piece of news that's dropped. It probably will be the biggest piece of news and most talked about news story for at least the next week. Hopefully, we'll see. NASCAR has announced that it is bringing the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series to the Coronado Naval Base in San Diego, June 19th, 20th, and 21st, 2026. The event will replace the Chicago Street Race, though NASCAR says it does not yet know what race will take place during the 4th of July weekend. So again, this Coronado Naval Base Street Course race, that's going to be held in June, mainly around Father's Day weekend. And so the 4th of July date is still kind of up in the air because the Chicago Street Course, they've hit pause on that. They said it's not going to come back for 2026, but 2027 is an option for the race to make a return if it's feasible. Again, I think it depends on how the city of Chicago wants to go about it, because I do think that the city of Chicago liked having NASCAR there. I think it was a positive thing for the city overall. It's just that this is something that needs to change out. You can't have something overstay its welcome. If it's run its course, it's run its course. I think there are some people who probably would say the Chicago Street Race had not yet run its course. I think some people would say that maybe it has. Interesting thing to note, though, about this Coronado Street Race that's going to happen is that NASCAR's only signed a one-year deal. So it's just 1 year. Unlike the Chicago Street Race, which was a 3-year deal, this race is only a 1-year deal, which, again, kind of gives more steam to the theory that NASCAR could be looking at these street races as being kind of a rotating event for the Cup Series to kind of bring the series to different and new markets around the country that might not have racetracks that they can go to. In this current era, you're not going to see a track boom like you saw in the late 90s and early 2000s. I just don't think you're going to see that. I don't think it's feasible. I don't think it's possible. But I think you can see a lot of these new markets being explored with street races, and I think that's probably what you're going to see. And you're really seeing this now. Again, it's not necessarily a new market, but it is going back to Southern California, which is a market that NASCAR desperately cannot afford to leave, and they did by making their decision about California Speedway, which, again, could be a whole nother show, my opinion on that. But either way, very interesting news coming out about this, again, with this race being only a 1-year deal. But they are bringing the Trucks and Xfinity Series there as well. Though just one of these days, I'd like to see them take the IMSA Series to one of these tracks. But what do I know? Hey, at least I could say one thing. It looks like that, according to Bob Pockris, the series will be, NASCAR is going to be bringing some temporary infield lighting to the Roval coming up later this year. So that should be interesting, because I believe the Xfinity race is supposed to start like 5:30 or something, and so they want to have it well lit and ready. So I'm cool with that. Would also like to see the Roval also be on the IMSA schedule, but I digress. That's not what we're talking about here today. We got to get back on topic. Speaking of NASCAR and Chicago, NASCAR has also said it is apparently interested in bringing back Chicagoland Speedway. But at this time, it doesn't have a timeline for when that'll happen or what series will visit the track, be it a Truck Series return, an Xfinity return, or even a Cup return. Me personally, I really kind of expected them to announce a return to Chicagoland Speedway for next year. But based on what I'm reading now, it seems like that's not really in the cards. But again, things could change. Maybe this is just a bluff by NASCAR. I don't know. Maybe they could get it ready for next year, it doesn't look that dilapidated. It looks still pretty good. It's not like North Wilkesboro. It's not like Rockingham. It's not like you're going to have to literally take a government subsidy to actually revitalize these tracks. I think they could probably get it done in the same regard as, think about Nashville. Nashville was kept in an impeccable condition despite lying dormant for about 10 years. So, I don't know. I think it could be doable for next year, but we'll have to see. And obviously, this statement here makes it seem like NASCAR might not have a future plan for it for next year, but maybe in 27 or 28. Who knows? And speaking of that schedule, according to Ben Kennedy, says that NASCAR expects the 2026 schedule to be released, quote, in a few weeks or so. That is Ben Kennedy's a few weeks or so is when he expects the 2026 NASCAR calendar to drop. Also, some interesting NASCAR news. We've been talking a lot about the lawsuits that have been going on. Well, here's something that's probably going to throw a big-time wrench into that 2311 and FRM lawsuit. NASCAR has amended its rule book to say that now up to 6 open teams will be eligible to be locked into races based on their owners' points. So now that argument that 2311 and FRM had of the irreparable damage that not competing chartered teams could cause, seems like NASCAR has changed their rule book to make that argument invalid. I am just the messenger here. Make that of what you will. Make that of what you will. NASCAR changing the rules in the middle of a fairly heated court battle, and Denny Hamlin did say over the weekend, all will be revealed and all will be exposed come December 1st. So it sounds like he's pretty hell-bent on taking this thing to trial. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, especially now with NASCAR enacting this rule change. I think that's got the owners a little bit more upset now. So, at least FRM and 2311 owners. I think that's got them a little bit upset. And it also kind of makes me wonder at that point, like, if you're locking drivers in, locking cars in based on owners' points, doesn't that defeat one of the main purposes of having a charter? Like, most of the purpose of the charter was obviously to have revenue sharing, a share of the NASCAR media rights and revenue and whatnot, but it was also to guarantee your cars a spot in the race so that you wouldn't be at risk of failing to qualify. So now it looks like the only thing keeping people from actually obtaining a charter now is gone. Like, if they don't have the financial or monetary assets to get themselves a charter, it doesn't seem like from this it'll matter all that much anymore. You just won't get the revenue sharing, which means, I don't know, maybe that balances itself out. It's weird. It's very weird. It's very weird. So this is, again, more lawsuit news that we're going to have to monitor going forward. This is getting messy, and I'll be very curious to see what Jeffrey Kessler argues for on behalf of 2311 and FRM when this thing probably does end up going to trial. So, again, things we'll have to look at coming up here in the near future. Now let's finish up the NASCAR news with some driver and sponsor and whatnot changes. So we talked about last week, Chris Wright and Our Motorsports were parting ways. Well, we found out just about a day or two after that Our Motorsports was shutting down entirely after Dover. And that's what they did. After the Dover race concluded on Saturday, they were done. Their time as an Xfinity Series program was done. I have no idea what caused this, but you know what? If you know Chris Wright well enough, you probably know what caused this. Meanwhile, the final piece of NASCAR news here before we take our final break. Christian Eckes is set to return to the Truck Series with McAnally Hilgeman Racing, who he raced for last year, where he won the championship for 2 upcoming races, the August 15th race at Richmond and then the September, or excuse me, he didn't win the championship last year. He went to the championship 4. Sorry. But I had to remember that for a hot minute. Give me a break. Give me a break. Sometimes I'm doing this all at once. But anyway, Christian Eckes, he's coming back to the Truck Series and McAnally Hilgeman Racing for 2 races coming up in August 15th at Richmond and then September 20th at New Hampshire. So, and he's going to be driving the number 16 car. And if you are a longtime and avid viewer of the West Series, whatever it was called, Winston West, K&N West, now ARCA Menards West, that 16 Napa Chevrolet or Toyota or what have you has been very prominent in that series for a while. So it's kind of cool to see that now being turned into a truck, even though it's not going to be sponsored by regular old Napa. I think it's a Napa brand, and then I think AAA is also on the car. So, but that's some interesting news there coming out in the Truck Series. So we got to take one final break. But when we come back, we are going to recap all of the races that happened last weekend and get you ready for all the races that are set coming up this weekend. So do not go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Let's finish this show off by talking about all of the races that happened this past weekend. Obviously, the Cup Series was in Dover over the weekend. It was a very interesting race at Dover, especially regarding tire wear, especially regarding a lot of the things that were happening. The weather caused crazy things with tire wear. The cars were, we were going. The Cup Series basically ran on a Dover track without any practice, qualifying, nothing on that set of tire. It was a brand new tire going out to Dover. We were just going to see what happened. It wasn't bad. I didn't think the racing was that bad, though I do think, obviously, the next-gen cars, dirty air, is, again, still a problem. It is very concerning to me when drivers on worn tires are still able to hold off drivers with newer tires just by aero blocking. I still think that's a problem that NASCAR really, really needs to address. Will they address it? I don't know. I doubt it. So, hey, man, sometimes you gotta take what you can get. But, I mean, it wasn't a bad race by any means. But it was interesting. You had a red flag for rain with about 13 laps to go. And NASCAR decided, we've got enough sunlight. We're on cable. We're not on a tight broadcast window. Let's wait it out. Let's try and finish this race, which I commend them for doing because I'm glad that they did that. I've been to a race before where it's rained right before the end of the race, and honestly, nothing feels worse than worrying about them calling that race when you think, oh, but it's just a passing shower. I think we could get the race in. And sure enough, it was just a passing shower. It only took them about an hour to dry the track. And the cars were back racing for the final 13 laps, which, by the way, got crazy when Christopher Bell spun out, going for the race lead. That was very interesting, very crazy series of events. I guess he just got a little bit antsy there, waiting under that red flag. But then Denny Hamlin pulled away in an overtime finish to successfully get the victory. And it was a big deal, especially coming on the heels of what's going on now with 2311 and FRM and that lawsuit that for his team, that's his team that's involved in that lawsuit. So a very big statement victory, I think, for Denny Hamlin in that regard. Hey, man, I know a lot of people don't like Hamlin, but you got to admit, it's kind of like it's kind of like a middle finger to NASCAR. It's kind of like that's what he's doing. He's kind of giving them that, and that's kind of interesting. So, but yeah. So, hey, man. Also, let's talk about the Xfinity Series. I think it's important to talk about the Xfinity Series and just how well Connor Zilisch has been doing since he came back from his injury following his horrible crash at Talladega earlier this year. The dude's been on a tear. I mean, he won this weekend at Dover, and now that he's winning, I mean, it's one thing for him to start winning on road courses, which I think everybody expected him to do. But now that he's finding his way on ovals and getting a hand on these ovals at his age with his level of experience, oh my goodness, this is why I think those rumors about him going to Trackhouse next year to replace Daniel Suarez, I think those could be legitimate and could be gaining steam based on what I'm seeing. I think based on what everybody's seeing. You have to look at what Connor Zilisch is doing right now in the Xfinity Series and then compare it to what he's learning in the Cup Series and getting better and better and better. The kid is like a sponge just absorbing all this information and knowledge, and I think it's really going to pay off because you saw what happened at Dover. I was kind of surprised. Again, I still thought Ryan Truex was probably going to be the favorite there. He wasn't. Probably, again, not being in a Joe Gibbs car probably does that something for you because the guy who was driving the car he was in last year, Eric Almirola, was running up in the top 5 and top 2 and leading laps most of the race. You got to think that maybe Ryan Truex probably could have been doing the exact same thing had he been in the car, but sponsors and prior commitments and whatnot. The fact of the matter was he was still in the race at Dover, just not in a car that could probably have competed for the win, unfortunately. He did finish pretty well. I think he got a top 20 out of it, which is still something to be still impressive in and of itself, especially when you're driving for, not to say Sam Hunt Racing is a bad team. It's not by any means, but it's not Joe Gibbs Racing good. You know what I mean? It's got kind of that mid-tier kind of like, oh, yeah, you can knock off a top 15, top 10 here and there, but it's not like you're going to be competing for wins week in and week out like you would be if you were in Joe Gibbs Racing. You know what I mean? And so, but either way, still a fun weekend at Dover. Let's talk about the IndyCar weekend at Dover, because that was, or not Dover, good gracious. What year is it? No, the IndyCar weekend in Toronto, like I said, might be the last race at Toronto for the foreseeable future. Hopefully not, because this was a thriller of a race. Toronto always, I feel, is one of the most exciting street races that IndyCar goes to. Like, I feel like the track in and of itself just makes for some really good, hard, white-knuckle, wheel-to-wheel style street racing. And I say this as somebody who's not really all that fond of street races. Don't get me wrong. I do like St. Petersburg. I do like Long Beach. Obviously, I like Monaco. I like certain street races, but I just don't think that they need to be everywhere. Like I don't think IndyCar needs to be having a street race at Arlington, Texas. I don't think IndyCar needs to be having street races. I didn't think they needed one in Baltimore or Boston or any of these other places that they keep trying to go to. I digress. I still like Toronto. It's must-watch television every week, and it was. Pato Award, going out there, getting the victory, but it wasn't all that easy because Alex Palou probably coulda, shoulda, woulda just driven away with that win without ever even having to try. But here's the thing. When you have 5 full-course cautions in one race, and one of those full-course cautions comes out at a really bad time in your pit strategy, it's kind of hard to win the race. And that's basically what happened to Alex Palou. Had a ill-timed caution, got mired back in the pack, lost a lot of track position, wasn't able to come back up through the field, and the rest is history. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about that podium real quick. Pato Award, Rinus VeeKay, and Kyffin Simpson. Man, Kyffin Simpson has been impressing me basically since the Indy 500. I have been very impressed with what Kyffin Simpson has been doing, not just in qualifying, but also in the race. And now he goes out there, and I believe he got this podium on merit. I think, yes, a lot of it, he was helped a lot with the cautions and with the way his strategy was paying out. But the fact of the matter was he still held on to that third place for several laps. And yes, the race did end under caution, but I think Kyffin would have still gotten the podium either way. And Rinus VeeKay probably could have won the race had that caution come out maybe a lap or two earlier. Either way, what a great podium. That is one heck of a podium. VeeKay, again, VeeKay is a guy that if he is not in contention for one of the open seats that's not at Dale Coyne Racing next year, that will be that's a disservice to not just him, but IndyCar and its fans. Rinus VeeKay needs to be in a top-tier drive, and he has proven it now with some of the most recent drives that he's had for Dale Coyne. Obviously, them having Michael Cannon probably helps a lot. Rinus, even in the post-race press conference, attributed a lot of the improvement to Michael Cannon. But again, man, Rinus, good job, man. Getting that's his first podium since he left Ed Carpenter Racing. I think it's his first podium since 23 or 22 or something too. So it's been a long time coming for Rinus to get back on that podium, and it was good to see him do it. And again, congratulations again to Kyffin Simpson. What a run. You know what? And again, I'm going to say this. At the beginning of the season, I thought, Kyffin, just another pay driver. Didn't really impress me. I kind of wondered what Chip Ganassi saw in him. Now I'm kind of be like, oh, wow, he's a funded driver with talent. That's rare, So we'll see if he could keep that up. But definitely, he's got plenty of chances coming up. There's 4 IndyCar races still left to run this year. So let's go ahead and wrap up the show, talk about some of the races that are coming up. Obviously, it is Brickyard 400 weekend. So if you are in Indianapolis, make sure you get out to the Brickyard 400. It's going to be a great race. You're going to have the Truck Series and ARCA Menard Series doing a doubleheader Friday night at IRP. And also be sure lots of Hoosiers are going to be in that race, so make sure to cheer for all of them. We've got interviews with 2 of them right now available on WTHR Plus. If you just search the Racing Report, look up Brayton Laster and Presley Sora, you can watch those interviews in full with both of those drivers. Find out maybe a new favorite driver to cheer for in the ARCA Menard Series race coming up this weekend on Friday at IRP. But then obviously it'll be followed by the truck race. The Xfinity Series takes to the Oval on Saturday, followed by the Brickyard 400 on Sunday. IndyCar is going to go head-to-head with the Brickyard 400 for some reason. The Brickyard starts at 2. The IndyCar race goes on the air at 3. Okay. Anyway, be sure to watch that. That's going to be at Laguna Seca. Obviously, always a great race. But boy, is it probably going to be hot. I do not want to be in Northern California in late July. That does not sound very pleasant to me, but I digress. And then Formula One is coming back this weekend. They got the Belgian Grand Prix coming up here at Spa. Then they're going to go to the Hungaroring before they start the summer break. But then Formula E is going to finish up this weekend with a doubleheader at the London E-Prix. Now, they've already crowned the champion. Oliver Rowland was crowned the champion in the past couple of races, but still all to play for 2 race victories are still up to play for in the London E-Prix in Formula E. But that is it for this week's show. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you guys so much. Remember, if you like this show, be sure to follow me on social media, and you could do so by looking up at RPEETERS33. That's at RPeters33. And then be sure to have the WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV so you can watch live local news and the latest episodes of the Racing Report. So, for WTHR Plus, my name is Rob Peeters, and we will see you next time on another episode of the Racing Report.